On the podcast this week is Mary O'Doherty, a drama therapist based in Dublin. After completing her MA in Dramatherapy Maynooth, she worked with children in Dyspraxia Association in Doras Buí. She currently works in St John of God's for the last decade. She also is a lecturer at UCD School of Medicine. I really hope you enjoy the conversation with Mary O'Doherty. I've been dying to get you on, to be honest, because you're just such a lovely person, and I find your story fascinating because, not everybody has, started the way you have. So I suppose just to tell your story of how you got into drama therapy and the work that you're doing now and that. So Mary, tell us about yourself and I have loads of questions.
Yeah.
But I guess maybe even just thinking about the start of your journey and maybe the why, as to why you decided to go down the road of drama therapy.
Yeah. Well, I started out as an actress. I lived in London, and I trained as an actress in London, and I loved theatre. It was amazing living in London, the world's best theatre, and I used to temp during the day, and then I did my theatre course, which was really cheap. It was funded by Inner London Education Authority. It was 50 quid per year. It was amazing. This is a long time ago. It's about 30 years ago. Maggie Thatcher was Prime Minister. And I loved theatre. And I came from working class Dublin and never in the theatre in my life, but just fell in love with going to the theatre. And there was an acting course, and I thought, I'd love to try that out. And I was really shy. And I was terrified auditioning. And I got in, and it was just amazing for my confidence doing the actual acting training. And so it was in London. It was the end of the 80s, and I kind of thought, I'd really like to do this actually as a job. Is it possible? And so I auditioned in London to do the full-time course in the Gaiety School of Acting, and so got in. And so having lived in London for 5 years, I came home, what age was I then? About 24, and then I did the full-time acting course, and so then finished that. Was an actress and a waitress and on the dole. And so you kind of, as an actress, you sort of you try to make a living, So my husband now, was my boyfriend there, he worked in advertising, so I'd get the odd ad, and you wangle a few bits and pieces of money here, there, and everywhere, and the odd little job, the odd little bit of theatre, and then you're out of work for 6 months, and you might get a job for a week, and you're out of work, and it's a very hard life. And then I became pregnant, not planned, with my son, who's now 26, and so then suddenly I was at home still, and an actress, unemployed waitress. And I decided then I really wanted to go to college and do a degree, and so I went to UCD at night time while Owen was 2.5, and I did my degree at night time in English and drama studies. And it was lovely. I loved going to UCD. It was great. And so I did a modular degree. So you do it over a few years, And I just fell in love with academia. And in the meantime, the other side of me was we had a children's theatre company kind of going as well during the day, myself and a friend, and we did like storytelling using puppets.
Is this TikityBoo? Is that
TikityBoo? Yeah. And we would this was a little theatre company, yeah. So we set up this theatre company, myself, my friend Fanula, who I met in a theatre company called Down to Earth. And in Down to Earth, we had toured around every school in Dublin doing workshops around the environment. And then we decided we'd set up our own theatre company and deal with, use Irish writers. And So we kind of had this thing called play shop, where we went into the schools and we would make theatre with the kids during the day, and then, you know, in the evening or later on in the we would show some of the stuff that we did, and then that would be it. It would be a day's workshop, and we loved it and all the rest. And in the meantime, I was still doing my studies at night time, and the odd little thing, and so I got my degree, and really thought, God, I loved academia. I loved academia, and really wanted to go on and wanted to do a master's. And
you had the bug.
got the bug, loved studying, and I didn't know what masters I'd do. And then a friend of mine, Michael, who is a dramatherapist, had done the dramatherapy masters, and he's also a clown. And he told me about this course, and you know, he was like, oh, you do anthropology and you do psychology and all those lovely yummy things which I loved studying, and I always loved anthropology anyway. And it just sounded, oh my God, that sounded amazing. And you know, for me, I was still thinking it was academia. I had no intention of becoming a therapist still, but yet at the same time, I kind of really knew how powerful drama could be. I had also worked with the Irish Red Cross, and we had run kind of workshops for people who wanted to work with children. We were training people who wanted to work with children in hospitals and with refugees, and we were teaching them drama processes. And a few people came back to us and said, God, you know, that was really good for my confidence, those drama workshops. So I really knew the tools of drama would be very powerful. So anyway, I applied for the masters, got in, went to Maynooth, met an amazing bunch of people from all walks of life. And we played for 2 years in Maynooth. We did all weird and wonderful workshops, using sand and toys and puppets and masks, and it was incredible. It was the most amazing course. And it was still in its infancy, and you know, it had teething problems and teething difficulties, but ultimately it was absolutely amazing, life-changing, really. And you know, you're doing your personal therapy at the same time, which I'd never done as part of the course. And you're doing group therapy, and I'd never done that. And you know, I sort of, maybe I didn't research the course enough. I didn't quite know what I was getting into.
So would that be kind of typical of you? Would you kind of jump into things and maybe just go with the heart more so than the head?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, I would. I'd go for it. I'd go for things, you know, and try and figure it out along the way as well. I'd sort of, one part of me, you know, would kind of have an idea, but most of me doesn't. Most of me just jumps in and gets on with it. And see, you know, I mean, I really wanted to do a master's, and this sounded very interesting. And I didn't really know if I would, you know, I thought I'd continue to study and continue to stay in college and maybe a PhD or something.
Lovely.
I didn't tell my husband that. And it was, you know, through doing the placements then, you know, we had to do placements, and I'd done 3 of the first placements in schools with children. And meanwhile, I had taught in schools in my lifetime as well. I'd been a drama teacher as well, and I'd taught drama to children in schools. And I always thought I loved working with children, and it came easy and it came naturally to me. I kind of naturally came to it as well. I've always enjoyed playing. It comes naturally to me. So, you know, working with children, you know, it didn't feel foreign at all to me. You know, it felt very real, and so I love that. And I thought I would work with children. And then my last placement was in St. John of God's. I did a mental health placement, and I kind of wasn't really looking forward to it. And you know, I was kind of fearful and all of that. And oh my God, when I went over to John of God's, I just loved it. Just loved it from the word go. I just loved completely fell in love with working with adults in mental health. Met the most amazing bunch of people and was over there for 12 weeks placement. They were really welcoming. Mike O'Mahony, who was teaching in the Maynooth in the dramatherapy course, was my supervisor, and he worked as the dramatherapist over there, and really gave me a good grounding.
Yeah, it sounds very
and
supportive.
I had to go into all the different courses that they ran over there, and I loved it. And so I kind of thought, God, yeah, no, this would be a nice life. Actually, this would be, yeah, I'd really like to do this. And I was just very lucky then as I finished up the placement. Mike was moving back to Kerry, and he said to me, do you want to continue with this work? So I said, yeah, and I'm still there 11 years later.
So you're still there. That's amazing.
Still there.
Oh, well done. Oh my goodness. So what have you seen as like, Mike left and you kind of kept doing the work? Has it changed in there? Have you noticed any changes in so far as accepting more drama therapy, creative arts therapies in that particular mental health world? Or like, have you noticed yourself change at all because of the role?
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot has stayed the same. My colleague Liam Plant is an art therapist. He's worked there for 20 odd years, and he's still there as well. In fact, myself and the art therapist are the longest members of staff in our centre. And when I first started working there, it was a day hospital. So it's community mental health services. It was in the grounds of St. John of God's, which is a private hospital. And they kind of wanted to take the day hospital out of the hospital and make it more into a centre and take the whole notion of hospital away from it. So the day hospital are, people who are meeting their teams and doing all the various different therapies, going home to beds at night time. And so this came from Vision for Change. And so it moved, they got a new building. We moved down to Blackrock and we changed the name. It's called Centre for Living.
Oh, lovely.
And in the centre, even the smell is different. You know the way when you're in a hospital you smell disinfectant. There's no smell of disinfectant. There's no beds. There's a lovely kitchen. There's a little sitting room. There's a proper sized drama therapy room with carpets. Big room. And there's loads of different therapies. We do yoga, mindfulness, and mental health education. So I mean, it's great. So from that point of view, that certainly has dramatically changed.
Wonderful.
The program may have changed. They've added, there's this dialectical behavioral therapy, the new kind of a way of working with people. But the program is fairly similar to what I've done from 10 years ago. So there's a session of drama therapy, there's a session of art therapy, there's yoga. That has remained. And so the Centre for Living really, actually, the psychotherapy they use are the creative arts therapies.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
And at one point we had a music therapist. So we had like 3 of our practices. So they really value the creative arts therapy. And in fact, they call it, this is our psychotherapy. So the only psychotherapy they do is through creativity. So you do feel very valued, which is wonderful, which is amazing. But that said, I have no contract. I've been working without a contract at all for 10 years. And my colleague is working longer, 15, without a contract. And we constantly, every couple of years we try to get a contract and it just never happens. It's quite incredible.
I suppose then, what does that look like then? Does that mean that you have to sign something every year, or do you not have anything that you sign? Like, is there any kind of rights? No, nothing. Gosh.
I invoice every month, as you do, and that's what I've been doing. you know, you have guarded clearance, and you know,
So,
I've met it with all that criteria. Obviously, you know, my own insurance, my supervision.
mhm.
I, you know, from my end, I've met with the criteria that I need to work, and that
Yeah.
IACAT, you know, encourage and advise us to have as a professional. So from my end, but it's not followed up in any way. You know, if I'm
Mm.
sick, even after 10
Yes.
years of working somewhere, I don't get paid. I didn't
Okay.
get paid during the COVID, you know,
Yeah.
the lockdown. And I'm back there now. I'm back there now. The hospital is, you know, that it's staying open. We're
Mhm.
staying open. You know, we're on the front line, and
Totally.
we have no contract.
Mm.
So
Very vulnerable position to be in then. But I think
mm,
it's interesting because, you're saying like this is the psychotherapy that is offered, their healing is done in this manner and they feel the benefits of it so much and it's accepted and, you're really supported. The building is quite purpose built really. And yet
mm,
the root of it all
mm,
is actually quite brittle. There's not
yeah,
really a good foundation there insofar for you and Lean Plant. But I find that is so common throughout Ireland.
mm,
There's I don't know, maybe two or three people that actually have proper contracts, full-time position
yeah,
contracts, like easily just two or three, across the whole island, there's not many of us.
yeah. It's extraordinary. It's
Mm-hmm.
baffling, isn't it? You know, that something that's used so much, and yet, you know, it's just we're still in that gray zone of who are we really,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And like
But
it's not
that
like
said, you know,
adult.
I still, I love the work, and
Yes.
I know that the work is very, very powerful and very useful. Um, you know, I you know, it's the way I work is with it's open rolling groups.
Mm,
So, you know, we'd have a group of people that are quite acute, you know, people who are very vulnerable may have had recent suicide attempts, suicide ideation, and they're quite sick, you know, and they're very vulnerable, and you know, you need to be professionally qualified and experienced to be able to keep those groups safe. And so it's really, really important that we are properly trained and
yes.
accredited, and you know, so and protect our identities as creative arts therapists.
Mm.
You know,
So I'm just going to go back a bit because, you were once an actor, a drama teacher, a drama facilitator, and then,
mm,
found yourself in the masters and then got this post. So you now knowing that the different parts of you before the different roles that you've taken, I'm sure you do know now that what you have and the skill set that you have now couldn't have been done you maybe 10 years ago, 11 years ago,
mm,
12 years ago
mm,
to the same level without the master. So like exactly
yeah,
that, it's like the training is
yeah,
so important. You can't say that a drama teacher could go in there and do the same job. It wouldn't be ethical
yeah,
really,
yeah.
so
No,
it's
no, it
definitely.
wouldn't. You know, you know, all of these tools that we use as creative arts therapists are very powerful, you know, and when we invite somebody to engage in a creative space with us and we invite them to open themselves up, we need, you know, a drama teacher has the same game, you know, maybe the same exercises that I might use, but I've trained, I suppose, to hold that space, you know, all that psychological holding that we do, and to help that person, I suppose, close at the end of the session, you know, to go out of that room at the end of the session in a safe place,
Mhm.
having opened, you know, that you're safely holding their material for them.
Mhm.
Um, so while some of the exercises, you know, that I might have used years and years ago, you know, even teaching children, whilst occasionally some of those exercises might be similar,
Mhm.
it's a very different me that's engaging with those process. You know,
Yeah, the
I have a reason
intention.
behind. You know,
Yeah.
there's a reason behind introducing those
Yeah.
exercises.
Absolutely.
But it's funny at the moment, you know, with drama therapy. How do you do drama therapy when everyone has to stay in their chairs? So that's been a challenge, trying to find ways of doing drama in chairs. But yeah, I suppose for the most part, um, you know, the groups I work with, I'll only have, it's very short term, very, very short term.
Okay.
So I'll have a service user for 2 weeks and then they're gone. So it's a very acute stage. And then someone goes on and does further therapy. So someone is coming maybe out of hospital after a psychotic episode, or coming out of St. Vincent's after a suicide attempt. So they're very, so, and then they come into our place for short, kind of like a bridge across the really dark suffering part. And then when they get across that bridge, then hopefully do some extra support. There are extra supports there. And you know, it's amazing, you know, how, I mean, people constantly amaze me. I meet so many people, you know, so I could have 5 people on Tuesday and a different 5 people on Wednesday. And then the following week, I might only have 3 of those people with 2 new people. So, I mean, over the 10 years, I've met thousands of people,
Yeah.
you know, because it's constantly rolling. And I'm just constantly blown away by the incredible stories you hear, the incredible resilience of people surviving awful things in their lives. And sometimes, you know, you just really feel it's such a privilege to walk with that person for a while and share their stories, and to allow them to have a voice to tell their stories. And the creative, I mean, some of the creativity that they've offered is just so beautiful and amazing and extraordinary and wonderful and painful. And not everybody engages with creativity, you know. It's not for everybody. But for the most part, I think you know, most people tend to connect with that creative bit of themselves in some way. Oftentimes you're meeting people at a very open place in their life where they're kind of ready to open.
Yes.
Willing to engage. So I use story making mostly. You know, I found after a few years how I've changed, which is one of the questions you asked me.
Yes.
Is I've actually done role play less and less. I don't tend to do role play anymore now over there, because oftentimes people hear the word drama first of all, and it's, oh my God, like, you're getting me up to do things, or well, I have to do something, and it can often create a bit of angst in people. And so it's nearly one of the first things I say to people is, we're not going to role play today, because people will have associations with drama. Yes. So I tend not to role play with people anymore. So the way I found a way of engaging with people through story making. So that other aspect of theatre is story.
Yes,
you know,
of course.
Making stories. And so we use lots of different materials and media to make story. One week I might use photographs.
Oh, gorgeous.
And, you know, people will, you know, I've got these amazing photographs with various characters, and we make fictional stories using these photographs, and then people can relate to them in some way. Sometimes people pair up, and, you know, they get their characters to come together and they give them scenarios. So photographs have been wonderful, and that's something we can still do while we're distancing. Yeah. And the other media that I find incredibly powerful is using natural objects, stones, shells, the wood, flowers, leaves, you know, putting them on a table and allowing people to just hold it and embody it, and, you know, allow this material to symbolize maybe a support in their life, a friend. So it's kind of, creating stories using natural objects, and using the embodiment bit. So sometimes that bit of work lies in between being an art therapist and a drama therapist.
It's so easily done, especially when you're bringing in story, because story is like you said, it's every person is a storyteller. Do you know, like we all have a story. You know, I'm sure we all know some other people's stories, and like that again, a lot of us would watch stories or read stories, you know. So absolutely, like, but it is a fine line, exactly. Like, I remember I was in a community day hospital in Tala before, and like that, what you're saying with the natural objects, I used to bring in like cabbage leaves and a paddy cap. You know, something like, you know, really out there. Like, so the cabbage leaves, and we'd make prints with them, and we'd pass them around and have a chat about, like, you know, what was your favorite meal growing up, and, you know, making prints with them. And that would be the start of the art making, is like that. It's the story, the attachment to a natural object, and then applying the paint to that natural object to make art, like a print from it. And like that again, it's that process. It's just unraveling some memory, getting into like the embodied experience, and then relating it to the other people as well. It starts a great conversation. So I totally see what you're
It's
talking
amazing,
about.
isn't it? Because oftentimes, you know, if somebody can find a symbol, that symbol can just really open up their story, and then people, you know, they're more than willing to engage with story, you know. And then you have people who've never been in group therapy in their life. It's all very new. They've heard, you know, people that are really uncomfortable about talking about themselves. The notion of talking about, you know, something from nature, sometimes even just having a conversation about a piece of wood is enough for that person that day, just to talk about, oh, you know, my driftwood might bring a memory up about walking beside the sea. And just even sometimes just to begin with talking about that object. It doesn't matter. It's just that person's beginning to talk.
Yes.
Maybe tomorrow they might be ready to talk about something else, but today it's enough to talk about that piece of wood.
Yeah.
You know, so it's you know, like every therapy, really, our creative art are tools. It's the tool is to connect your heart to that person, isn't it? To try and find a way into that person, and to try and find that dialogue between the two of you as a therapist and that person. And it's our tool is creativity, but, you know, really it doesn't matter, whatever it is that can get that person engaged, you know.
It's some way to connect, to be like, you know, I'm looking at the same thing as you are, I'm feeling it, you know, and we probably are picking up on the same kind of memory or experiences, like you said, with the driftwood and the sea, you know. It's lovely shared experience then. But I suppose just going back a little bit then, so I suppose I wanted to ask a little bit more about the Irish Red Cross, because not everybody has experience working with them, and how that maybe started you thinking about working with children, because you do still work with children, am I right? You still...
No, I don't actually. At the moment I'm working in the day hospital, and I haven't worked. I worked with children from the Dyspraxia Association, and we did group therapy with I suppose I would have done group therapy with 12, 13, 14-year-olds. And that's been maybe about 6 years since I've done that. And then I had my own practice for a while, and I would have taken a couple of referrals, but I haven't worked with children. And it is something that I'm questioning about myself. It's something, you know, I often think, God, I kind of miss that in some ways. I miss working with kids. And I was lucky enough to have a good year's contract, a really nice contract actually, out in a place, a Lone Parents Association, Doras Buí, out in Coolock. And it was really properly funded, beautiful room we had. And there were there was 2 dramatherapists and an art therapist, and we were all funded to work with children from the Lone Parents Association. And that was just fantastic, you know, to have a proper kitted out space with a sand play and puppets and a dress up corner. Oh my God, it was just incredible.
Yeah.
And you know, to really just do that model of just child-led therapy, allowing a child to come into the space, explore, find their way. and you to be in and walk with that child for that hour. Oh, it's wonderful. I loved it. Those spaces are so few and far between. You know, they lost their funding. There's only 2 drama therapists there, so I was last in, first out. Yeah, that was that was an amazing experience. So I'm not working with children at the moment, Vicky. I'm just with adults now.
Do you miss it? Do you miss, because like you said, you found it so natural to work with children.
Yeah.
Is that something that you miss, do you think?
I do love my work with the adults, but there is a part of me, I kind of yearn towards working with kids again, maybe somewhere down the line. I actually, during the last lockdown, I did a mindfulness meditation course online, and it was to work with children, to teach mindfulness meditation to children. And, it was really lovely. It was really nice. It's something I kind of feel, did you ever hear the story of those kids in Thailand that were the football team, and they were they were exploring a cave with their young coach. I think he was only 19 or 20. He was young anyway, and it started to flood, and they ended up in that cave, I think, for around 11 days, sitting on this kind of shelf.
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
And amazing, isn't it, that story? And all they just couldn't get them out. It was horrendous. And they had engineers from all over the world trying to figure out how they could get those children out. And what was amazing, what really stayed with me, was that he taught them how to meditate. He taught them how to do mindfulness meditation. And he kept the kids just safe for those 11 days or wherever it was. So I mean, that really stayed with me. That was like, that's an amazing tool to learn. And
yes, yeah.
Just even my own daughter, and I get her to do a little bit of breathing every now and again, and just give her a little tool. I think it's a life skill.
It is.
But so I thought, I did it online, and I thought, I wonder if I could develop some sort of a program and go into schools and teach, maybe to teach children mindfulness meditation. Not quite therapy, but maybe wellness, a wellness program, just to do, the way you can't really do therapy in schools during the day program, but there is this investment now towards wellness in schools, and so maybe there is a place for that.
There's a definite need, especially now, because I've definitely noticed that a lot of the parents that are getting in touch with me now are calling because their children are very anxious. And it all started last February and March with them, with the onset of COVID, and then just understanding that, am I the reason why my family are going to get sick? It's me, because it was always kept in the news. It was always the children who are the carriers, who are the ones that are the threat. That was definitely something that was said at the beginning. And then this feeling that, that you could possibly die from it. All this swimming around in their heads, and it was everywhere at the start, and it's now again everywhere, because of the spike. But I suppose the need is there, and I just hope that they recognize it and start, funding more workshops and wellness initiatives in schools, because it's definitely needed. Like, what better motivation?
And it seems to be, I was reading a few reports around wellness in schools and the latest, Vision for Change, and there is that desire to bring it in. But oftentimes it's I suppose educational psychologists are given the space in schools around mental health education, and or teachers are expected, as part of their school program, to teach it. And it would be amazing, for schools to be able to find a way of funding a therapist, a creative arts therapist, and a mental health practitioner to come in and teach skills, literally life skills. How to talk, where, how to breathe, how to cope with anxiety, what is anxiety, all of that stuff. And you can't expect teachers to be up on that as well as everything else. So I don't know, maybe.
I just remember when I was 15, 16 in school, and we happened to have this space in the timetable, and that one of the teachers a year ahead decided that she would take this space and once a week hold this thing. And what she did in the years of 2003, I think it would have been, she got us all in the room and she showed us how to put on makeup. So she brought in her makeup bag, she stood in front of us, put on her mascara and do this and do that. You know, that was her life skill. And then the next week, you know, she told us about how to set a table. I was like, Jesus, this is 2003. And instead of, you know, at that time, maybe going, right, I'm a bit out of my remit for life skills. I might go and ask maybe the counsellor to come in, and maybe someone outside of the school who does meditation or even yoga. Like it would have stood to us all. Do you know, whereas what she found a life skill back then, I don't know, it just blows my mind to think back of it. But I just hope that, you know, it changes now, you know, like that wasn't too long ago. That schools really do start to recognise an absolute need, and a more therapeutic approach, I think would be great. But I think it's a really good idea, and even if it's to start online, like, you know, you've already started that, and why can't it continue online for the foreseeable? You know, like, why not go for it? Do you know? So you did the work with Dyspraxia Association with Doras Buí, and then, like, are you lecturing as well? Is that right? Do you do a bit of lecture?
Yeah, just an occasional lecture with, you know, a couple of times a year in UCD, and it's the higher diploma in Psychotherapy Studies. And again, you know, I was in the right place at the right time. Mike O'Mahony, who was doing it, said to me, "Do you want to continue with this bit of work?" And so I just get invited out to UCD to do the dramatherapy lecture on psychotherapy studies.
Wow.
So it's really you kind of feel that's great, you know, them including the dramatherapy and art therapy in their modules and valuing it, you know, enough to put it in there. So you know, when I say lecture, you know, I do 3 hours, and I'll do an hour of theory and then 2 hours of come on up out of the chairs and a very practical session, because it's the best way to teach, isn't it?
Absolutely.
So it's really funny, you know, so the students will have a day of sitting in their chairs, and then I'm in and immediately, right, let's get the chairs moved, and we're in a circle, and once you change the space, the energy of the room changes.
I love
and then
that,
I bring my trusty bag of multicolored cloth, which is great. Every dramatherapist should have a bag of multicolored cloth. They can become anything. And then the room suddenly becomes this magical land where all sorts of stories are told. But I love that lecture, because it's just, you get to play again, and it's great to see people playing again. And people often, you know, the people that are doing that are often doing it because they're very interested in psychotherapy. They mightn't necessarily want to do psychotherapy, and, you know, maybe even the creative arts therapy is like the last thing in the world they might think of. But the fact that they're up throwing balls at each other and messing around with cloth and making up stories and little plays, and, like, you know, it's just lovely to see people getting into their child self again, their inner child, and playing. It's just lovely. I love it.
Sounds like you're doing a great job out there. God, it's amazing. It's lovely to be asked to get onto it, especially because you studied there first, you know, that the kind of full circle there.
Yeah.
It's really nice. And then you said colourful scarves, and it made me think about the actual full circle playback theatre that you're a part of as well, and how we know each other. And it just made me think.
We've never met live. Nikki, I'm dying to see your legs. I've never seen your legs before.
Oh,
just this bit.
They're mushroom stumps. They're not that exciting.
Yeah, Yeah, it'd be
Yes,
really fun to get back to playing live at some point again, you know, with our cloths.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh,
Yeah, I can't wait.
it's hopefully 2021 we'll get to be in the space together and play.
Yeah.
Oh, I really value
Yeah.
that space and everybody in it, you know.
Yeah, it's I think it's a way, I think, of just connecting with your own creativity, you know, because you know there were a certain number of years before I was in playback where you're facilitating creativity for everybody else, whether you're a teacher or whether you're working as a therapist, and you know you're facilitating other people's creativity. And I think, you know, it's really important to really find your own place for you to be creative. And you know, maybe as artists and musicians, it's, I don't know about you, Vicky, but you know, you can often make art on your own at home, or you can make music. But when you're an actor, you can't really act on your own in the house. You know, what makes
Yeah,
drama, what makes theatre is a witness.
I know.
You
Yeah.
know, you need, theatre is only theatre when it's a witness, when there's a witness there. So
Mm-hmm.
when there's even one member of an audience, otherwise it's you at home just pretending. So it's very hard to do drama unless you are involved with one other person.
Mm-hmm.
So it was amazing to do playback, just to really connect with my own creativity and performance,
Mm.
you know.
How long have you been doing playback theatre?
So yeah, so we actually did a module of play therapy in Maynooth for our masters, and so we had a a, a playback practitioner come in. Did I say play therapy or
You
playback?
said play therapy,
Playback
but
we
that's
did.
okay. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's playback.
Yeah.
We did a module of playback, and we learned how to do it as part of our masters, so that we ourselves could use it if you wanted. So, God, it was way back in college we did it, and then a couple of us, myself and Lou, Lisa, a couple of us continued to do it afterwards. We just kind of kept it on. So yeah, 11 years or so we're
Super.
doing it.
That's brilliant.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, amazing.
I know. And like you said, it's like when you're a teacher or a therapist, you do kind of forget about your own creativity, or you just can't get the time to do it. But like that, it comes into under the self-care, you know, you need to keep that part of
Do
you.
you find time to do your own art, Vicky?
Less and less. What I found works for me is dancing in the kitchen. It's like, it is like, I follow this man on Instagram, and he does live Instagram dance classes, and I just put it on and I dance in my kitchen. And that is like
Wow.
what you're saying about the acting. It's like I'm not witnessed, but I'm still part of something. And I'm finding that that's really helpful, and it definitely helped me all throughout from March to now, you know. He's doing it a little bit less now, but um he actually had to close his dance studio down because of COVID. Like, there was no money coming in, like, oh, just awful. But
Mm,
it's just like that
mm,
again. I find it harder to sit down and draw or paint these days. Like, I'm hoping to get
mm,
back into it a little bit for myself.
mm.
Um, but I'm definitely needing to move and,
Yeah.
you know, more, more expressive in the body. And like, I would have been a dancer before, you know, so
Oh,
yeah, so that would be, you know, I would have done ballet and Irish dancing all my life, pretty much. So
yeah.
that's in me. So um,
Mm.
so I'm finding myself just going for that and just loving that. Yeah.
Oh, it's great. It's great to dance.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great to
Dance it
dance, isn't
out.
it?
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I suppose, like, Mary, it's absolutely gorgeous talking to you, and hearing that the work you're doing still in John and God's is just, you're loving it. Like, you sound so mad about it
Mm,
still, which is gorgeous.
mm.
Um,
Yeah.
and I suppose it's like this, the podcast is hopefully promoting the work that we do and trying to, you know, bang on the door of Coru and HSC for more recognition, and
Mm,
TUSLA as well, and, you know, all the bodies that
mm,
that give these positions, just to recognize us a little bit more. And I'm really grateful for everyone who comes on, because I think the story that we all have to tell is so important. So thank you for sharing your story today.
Thank you so much, Vicky, for it's really interesting to talk about it, actually. It's all in your head somewhere, and it's kind of great to put a voice on it. Thank you so much, and thanks for your work that you're doing here as well, Vicky. And you take care.
Thank you.
And I'll see you at playback.
See you at playback. Hello, I'm Vicky Linnane, and welcome to Embrace Therapy podcast. I am a practicing art therapist based in Ireland. In each episode, I will interview guests from various fields of therapy and well-being with the aim to encourage healing through embracing therapy.